Hi, hi. Um, so this week, um, for those who, oh, Arthur's here, right? Okay, everyone's here. So this week we are doing the final chapter of um the of one of the main parts of the book we've been working through in this book club. Um, the this part of the book has been about the shinyMobile package, how it was built, the kind of features that it provides, all in the context of understanding progressive web apps, uh, which are we have now learned um, apps that can be installed on a mobile device and which have a kind of look and feel consistent with the native apps on that device, but maybe written in a different language, maybe written in a non-native language. So rather than using Swift or using Java to create a iOS app or an Android app, you can write in R using uh, shinyMobile, or presumably you can write in JavaScript or whatever. Um, Um, these same apps can be used on a desktop or in a browser or whatever. But yeah, so the final section, so the section we covered last week was about the different widgets provided by shinyMobile and some of the details about how those widgets were integrated in with Shiny, the kind of um, events that they have to respond to, how data's passed from the R server to these widgets, and how that's um, presented by the widget, how changes in the data lead to the anyway. The final chapter is called Fine Tune shinyMobile, and it only has a single example in it. It's a very short chapter. Um, Certainly in comparison with the one we did last week, which we simply didn't have time to get all the way through. But yeah, so the example used in this chapter is a little bit beyond what you might typically write in a Shiny app. So um, certainly most of the apps that I'm used to developing on. Once it's disconnected from the server, if you're working in it in the browser and you leave your session running for too long without interacting with it, eventually the connection, the WebSocket or whatever, will close, and you no longer have a connection to the um the R session on the server side from your browser. Though you can still see in a kind of grayed out way the um, the the design of the Shiny app there. It's kind of grayed out and you can't interact with it. Um, and that's typically where you know you the for a typical Shiny app. That's kind of fine, if the user isn't interacting with your app there for a sufficiently long time, you can kind of assume that they're no longer working with it, and maybe they've left it open in their browser tabs or something, and you can close the connection without much issue. On a mobile device, um, uh, connection to the to the internet can be a little sporadic. So if I'm on a bus going under a tunnel, I might lose my signal for a period of time if I'm driving through the country. I might through the countryside. I might lose my signal for a while. Not that I'd be driving while working with the Shiny app, but presumably Shiny apps couldn't be used for a diversity of things. Um, um, so the this chapter is a kind of, how to elegantly handle disconnections between the app running in the client's um, machine, disconnection between that and the R session that's running on the server. Um, so we're going to talk about that, and then towards the end, we're going to have a look at some of the examples of code in the shinyMobile. shinyMobile has a bunch of it, I, so in some senses the documentation's really good. In others, it's a little bit hard to use. But one of the great things about the documentation here is that a lot of the functions. So this is the reference for the F7 navbar function. A lot of the functions in this package have uh, an actual like runnable Shiny app as their um, in their example code, which is great because, to be honest, I did experiment with shinyMobile a couple of weeks ago, trying to work out how to make just a kind of hello world app, and really struggled to work out which functions you were allowed to use in which layout, which of the different layouts, and the kind of things that you're obliged to define for each of the UI functions. Anyway, we'll talk about that at the end. So yes, so the final chapter we're going to finish, and I don't think it'll take us too long. I haven't run the actual code here because I'm still struggling to work out how to actually implement shinyMobile as a package on my machine. But you know, the time's run out for working out that for me. Anyway, so typically when you've got a Shiny app running, if you leave it for too long, you get a grayed out screen and the app is no longer connected to the server, um, which is fine, but it's a little bit inelegant because you have to reload the browser window, start from scratch again. And, if you've spent a couple of minutes inputting a bunch of variables or uploading some files or something like that, all that's gone and you have to start again. Now, there are neat things about Shiny where you can set up bookmarks to automatically add certain variables, values for certain variables within a Shiny app. But for the most part, those kind of bookmarks aren't in place, and you'll have to start from scratch again. Right. Um, but when Shiny disconnects, the WebSocket doesn't close immediately. So it is possible, you do have a little kind of period, it seems, having read this chapter, when it is possible to reconnect to an app that you've seemingly disconnected from, without having to reload the whole app from scratch. So we know a little bit about the framework 7 upon which shinyMobile has been built. Um, I'm not quite sure how that indicates what the the disconnect screen should look like. It's basically a little bit grayer than usual. It probably would have been better to have a comparison of the running, the open app against the disconnected one. But the point here is, um, it's not that the grayed out version of the app isn't probably the best way of showing a user that your app has disconnected on a mobile device, because the screen display can vary in brightness depending on how recently someone touched their phone anyway. So it can look like it's grayed out just because the user's not touched the phone and the screen's gone a bit dim. So it might be better to show notification cards or something to the user to indicate that the app's disconnected. Now, so the example that is discussed here, they are going to use they're going to display a toast, which is like a kind of rectangle with some text on it, and this will contain a couple of buttons. So the toast will indicate your app has disconnected. Would you like to reload the app from scratch or reconnect to the app? So there is I'm assuming a JavaScript thing. I've never used this location API before. But I'm assuming that's not a Shiny thing. But I can't find evidence of a location global variable. Maybe it is a Shiny. Maybe it's a variable that Shiny adds. So this running in, if were you to run that in the DevTools console. So if you had an app running and then it disconnected, Control Shift I, presumably you would be able to run location.reload. And it would reload the page. So presumably it's loading the URL that you used, it's loading it up again. So that's for restarting the app from scratch. Also, we're going to add a reconnect button, and that's using a Shiny specific method for reconnecting. That will, provided the WebSocket's still available, it will try to connect to the R server using that WebSocket again. And with that, you won't lose any of the input and output things. Unfortunately, Shiny already does some stuff to, when disconnection occurs, Shiny will do a few things that cause the app to become to make it difficult for you to interact with the app as a user. So it will grey out the screen and things like that. So we need to be able to override that in order to implement these two buttons. Right. So how do we know when Shiny is disconnected? There's an event. Now we talked about these in the JavaScript for our book club. Whether or not we've talked about these events in this book club, I imagine we must have done at some point, but I don't remember it. Um, so what we've got, this is some JavaScript code here. Um, you have access to a WebSocket variable, and when the WebSocket closes, we're going to run this particular function. And what that will do, this is the code that Shiny uses. I think I can't see the bottom of my page. Is that pointing to a Shiny thing? No, it's pointing to the JavaScript events tutorial. What's this mean? If has opened, only if we've successfully document.trigger. So when the WebSocket closes, an event called Shiny Disconnected will be triggered. And then this method will be called how does that work? So that will indicate to the user that they've become disconnected. You get a little square rectangle at the bottom right, typically in a browser window, at least when a Shiny app closes. Then you remove the WebSocket itself. So we can actually, so the Shiny disconnected event gets thrown before the WebSocket is actually removed. Okay, so that means that the WebSocket's still available when Shiny thinks it's disconnected from the server. So, sorry, when you receive the notification that your web app, that your Shiny app has disconnected, the WebSocket itself hasn't closed by that point. So it is possible to reconnect if you play around with the code a little bit. So what we can do is wait for this event to be triggered and then do something different. So we can do wait for that Shiny disconnected event and add a add some code that handles what should happen when the app disconnects. So what do we do this? We remove the default Shiny reconnect elements. So by the onDisconnect method, which adds a disconnect overlay and optionally a reconnect notification. So this is the method that's defined within the shiny.shinyapp JavaScript code. So what happens is to the body of the app, you add this element, and the Shiny styling stuff will handle converting the app to a kind of grayed out version of the body of the app. You also get this kind of reconnection dialog that shows up at the bottom right of a app before it closes down completely. So you can reconnect using that. So that's the browser version, at least. And we want to hack this to make it such that a more easily interacted with button comes up for use on the in a mobile device. So what they actually do, right? So this is a method. Shiny that's the JavaScript Shiny object, right? You can hack with that because that's a globally visible variable. Um, so you can add some code. So what this code here will do um, is whenever. So if you add this code to an app, what it will do is it will wait until that app is connected to, the connect until that WebSocket's up and running and the Shiny app's connected. Then it will hack on that Shiny object. It will change the on disconnected method from the original version, which is defined in the Shiny source code, to a version that's more appropriate for a mobile app. So um, it will add that grayed out overlay. Uh, so we're still doing that, but do the it doesn't do the it no longer provides the standard route for reconnecting your Shiny app. So it's so the code that so we've took this method out of shiny.shiny app and we've replaced the internals with just this section here, which shows the grayed out screen, but doesn't show the reconnection stuff. And what we're going to do is we're going to replace the reconnection stuff at the bottom here with a more appropriate thing. So we've got a another thing here where when the Shiny disconnected event gets thrown, what was that again? So that's thrown that's thrown before the on disconnected method is called. So you will see this event, you can handle it, and then um, um, and you know, so when we see that disconnected event, we define a toast element that will show up in the mobile app. And what it will do is, so you've got two different buttons, one for reloading the app entirely and one for reconnecting from the point that you were at. And yeah, and the buttons will just say either reconnect or reload. So it's quite, I don't know, I mean, I think that's quite neat. So once a toast has been met, once one of the buttons has been pressed, you can close this reconnect, the toast element that shows the reconnect buttons. So what you end up with is a UI element that looks like this. So when the app is disconnected, it still goes grayed out, and then this toast is displayed, and you can reconnect or reload the app. I was looking at it and thinking, but surely on close, you trigger that event, and then you get the buttons and stuff displayed. You click the button that you want to choose, and then now if it reloads the app, I understand what's going on because a lot of the pre-existing state will disappear and the app will start from scratch. But if you reconnect to the app, then these two methods will still run, I think, which would mean that what is it now? It's not on disconnected. That would mean that the grey out thing's still visible, but maybe I misunderstood something. It was quite hard to follow the code if given that I wasn't able to like reproduce it in the in our studio myself. Yeah, this is kind of I didn't quite understand what the final bit of blurb is, but yeah. So what have we implemented here? Well, what has the author implemented here? Um, so last week we were talking about the input widgets and the different kind of UI elements for displaying data or for inputting data. This is a little bit more advanced in that we're actually changing how an app will shut down and start up. But yeah, I mean, it's quite neat. I learned a little bit about, how Shiny does actually, excuse me a second, does actually reconnect and disconnect from the server and the processes involved. Um, but yeah, there's no way I'd have been able to implement this without having seen the book. It takes a certain fluency with um, knowing the front end tools, knowing the sort of generic front end tools, the Shiny specific methods, and knowing how to manipulate the Shiny object to make it easy to implement your the feature that you want. Um, yeah. Anyway, it seemed like there was an awful lot of like kind of um, there was an awful lot of parallel worlds from my own level of like understanding, but it's quite interesting to read though, nonetheless. Right. So that's shinyMobile. So now, having worked through like 5 chapters about shinyMobile, we should be capable of implementing an app that uses shinyMobile and be able to look at the what the the kind of features that are present in a shinyMobile app. Um, so let's have a try at that. Sorry, does anyone have any questions or comments about the chapter itself?
All good on my side.
Um, okay, so I've got a kind of skeleton app, the kind of hello world thing that you get when you um, start a Shiny application in our studio. And I'm gonna I'll just check. Um, um, so I've got shinyMobile installed. So if I load up, yeah, what I'll do is I'll delete all this code and I'll copy in this app here. Oh, um, right, so what have we got? We've got a UI that uses this F7 page thing. So if we actually look on the I think there's a kind of getting started. Um, what was it again? It was. I thought there was I thought there was a cheat sheet for shinyMobile. I can't find it right now. um, okay. Right. Yeah. So what we're gonna do is we'll just run this app as it is, and it will create. Um, I found the cheat sheet actually now, but I couldn't find the full screen version of it. So there's three main layouts, um, and this is the first example we're going to do uses this one page layout, the F7 single layout. We talked about the different layouts that are available in, I think it was 3 chapters ago or something. Um, so there's a tab layout that has these little tabs at the bottom and like expandable lists that you can access. And there's this the one we're going to do here is like a single layout where you can add buttons if you want, but there's not that tab um, thing at the bottom. Anyway, that's not a very good view of the um, cheat sheet really. Right, let's run this, and I'll move it over to the browser so that it looks a bit more like it would in a right. So if I look at that as if it was in a mobile device. There's things that we can do to, so that button there would hide and show the nav, but if I change it back to how it was, it should still work in a browser window as well. Um, there are a load of other, oh yeah, here we go. So we've got that reconnection and reload thing here. Doesn't quite look right to me, but let's reconnect and see if it works. Oh, because the WebSocket's failed. Let's see if we can do. Oh, come on. Um, yeah, the reason that didn't work is that I'd closed the server on in my R session. Yeah, it closed down. Right, let's get a different one. Hopefully there'll be something a bit more exciting. So, oh no. Um, so this is using, so what did we use just then? That was looking at the nav bar. Um, we're going to look at implementing some tabs as well. So in order to add tabs to an app, you add this F7 tabs thing, and then you have an F7 tab for each tab that you want to add. Adding buttons is fairly straightforward. This is the feature that it wants to demonstrate. So there should be 3 things called My Button on the page when we run this code. So let's have that. Oop, what have I done here? Yeah. Oh, maybe the examples don't work anymore. There's the punctuation. Tab name. I don't use punctuation in tabs. Right. Yeah. So here we're doing. If I open it in the browser, so it's a bit easy to manipulate. So here, this app is it's a tab layout um, app. So you've got these tabs at the bottom here. They don't actually do anything, I don't think, but it's a way of. It's similar to like the what is it now? The um is it the navbar page in vanilla Shiny where you can go from one page to another in the app. So it looks like it's a multi-page app, even though it's all defined in a single URL. Um, so there's a way of zipping between different tabs. And yeah, so here we've got that the panels at the top, a nav bar, and then we've got the tabs at the bottom. So the panels are like these F7 panel things. And when you expand that, it shows you a few things as well. Um, so this is a dark version of the same kind of thing. You can imagine using this though, in a mobile device where you'd be like clicking between things and stuff. Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I mean, I was exploring the things last week, but no, a couple of weeks ago. I did get a little bit lost as to what I was supposed to put where and things. So for a tab layout, here the only things that are essential, I think, are the navbar entry. So those panels at the top are um, tab layout. Or maybe the panels is essential as well. Um, yeah. Oh, what's this? It's got a script attached to it. Maybe run that in a second. But yeah, so you've got these user interface things again. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it. I was investigating shinyMobile as a way to make apps that could be usable on both mobile and desktop. Well, like they were principally designed for mobile, where, and just showing a few numbers here and there. Um, and like, I don't know whether I mean, it just the theming of it didn't feel quite um it it felt like it would be harder to get a an app together that would kind of subscribe to um the theme that we wanted for the app using shinyMobile simply because of not knowing the framework as well as the theming that underpin the bootstrap stuff that underpins Shiny normally. Um, um, but yeah, so you could reasonably add in um, tabs. What else is there? Presumably there'll be a um,
But Russ, I guess for the use case, your use case, I mean, are you thinking it would just be better to have some like media queries and make things look nice on mobile when the screen size is mobile? Because
yeah,
it,
yeah.
it seems like with this framework, you just have the same interface regardless of the form factor.
Mm, yeah. Right. Have I messed up anything? Let's see if this one. Yeah, yeah. So that's probably the best. In fact, that's kind of how we felt because it was like, is it is it too much to go because Shiny Mobile has solved so many additional problems, but they weren't problems that we really felt that we needed solving here. We could probably just use Shiny as is without this for the use case that we had and just like determine what features could be doable based on the size of the screen. But yeah. Anyway, what I forgot here? Did that run? Oh no, hold on, reload. Where did I put that figure? It's probably not come through at all. Have I? What is it again?
Would it need to be within one of those little, I forget what it's called, but like the my button things?
Maybe it would.
Because it looks like here you've just like stacked it after the other UI elements, like the cloud upload thing that's at the bottom of the page. Somehow it's
Right.
not
Okay.
showing, I think, yeah.
Yeah. So if I put that, oh, there was a F7 layout. Um, F7 tabs. Um, Panels, F7 panel, bin tag list, multiple panels. So I've got I've got panels at the top. I've got buttons below in the nav bar. Then I've got tabs at the bottom. And presumably the tabs are entering as the dots. So yeah, so if we move that above, it might work, but it might not. Or maybe, in fact, it would need to be within one of the F7 tabs to become visible. I can see tab one's been pushed down, tab two's been pushed down. So it looks like something's going. Maybe if we look at F7 tab. No. If I pull
I
it to,
wonder if you need an F7 page. I wonder if that's like a fluid page, like their equivalent to fluent page.
yeah,
Or
it's
fluid
possible.
page, sorry.
Yeah, it's weird because there's obviously space has been apportioned to the plot, but the plot's not visible. Yeah, shiny plot output. I wonder if I've done something wrong. Um, yeah, there was another example that had a little bit more content. Step ups, plot output. So this is the help page for F7 tab layout.
Yeah, there's an article or like a vignette or article this link I just
Hmm.
dropped in chat. I could be misleading you here, but it looks like they've got those elements within. They've got some elements within the F7 tab. Um,
Right, okay. Yeah,
although
so
there's nothing rendered here, so it's kind of like you have to imagine what it looks like, but that's the nature of things, I guess.
so this card element. Right, I'm just going to copy this in as a further example. So this is like a more extended example. What is it? Tab layout again. I think I had a look at this one. Um, when I was looking into this. So the rendered plot. Oh, actually, maybe did I type render plot in twice rather than plot output? That's what I did wrong. There, right. So it is feasible um to add content inside a an F7 tab without wrapping it with additional stuff. But there is it yeah, there's just gradually more complicated examples in this thing. So I've copied that. So I need to yeah. So there's quite a bit of stuff going on here. If you go between tabs, it's showing different things. Um, the UI code for this example is quite complicated though. So you've got so the first tab here is showing um, F7 shadow must be the thing that contains this observations and the plot and this button at the bottom. Um, so we've got a stepper, which is this thing, and then the output plot. Right. Okay. Yeah, it's just that for me, there's so many like new types of UI element um, that I couldn't find the right thing to put in at any point. But yeah, it does look like, I mean, aside from the mistake I just made, and I've made a lot of mistakes with Shiny today, so it's not entirely surprising I made a further one while we were being recorded. But yes, so it it's completely doable to make an app like this and use the typical Shiny um functions that like the plot outputs and things. Um, a lot of the a lot of the inputs that are kind of bootstrap driven, there'll be a F7 equivalent for, which is what this F7 stepper thing is here, is for selecting numbers rather than using a slider. Because I don't know about you, but I don't think I could accurately use a slider with my finger anymore. Um, anyway, yes, so it's quite nice. The documentation for shinyMobile, it it's nice that there's so many examples of the the kinds of apps that you can create with it. And there's a few vignettes as well that including the one that you just highlighted. Um, the yeah, um, perhaps a little terse, the documentation though, in that it just goes straight into examples, and presumably you then follow up what each of the different things is by looking in the Framework 7 documentation or something. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a cool tool to have available for, you know, the projects that could come to light in the future. But um, and I would quite like to see how to make an app that could be installed on either as a standalone desktop app or a mobile app. Um, just like what the actual workflow is to turn something that runs in the browser, to, you know, to either open something in the browser that you can then install on your phone, or to define something that you can install from like a app store on your phone. Um, but for purely like technical interest, I don't think I'll ever have to make anything that works that way. But yeah, anyway, so that's that. So that's Framework 7 as provided to us by shinyMobile. Um, and I don't know. I mean, the whole section was quite interested in that you saw a lot more of the kind of um, mechanics of Shiny, how things are, how the front end stuff interacts with the back end stuff, and so on. Um, yeah, but in parts, I found it a little bit difficult to follow some of the examples, and a little bit hard to follow what the um, overall ideas were that we were to take in from this section of the book. Nonetheless, we're starting a whole new section of the book next week. No, in 2 weeks' time, um, looking at um, React and other JavaScript side web development tools. So the first chapter's on using React from within Shiny applications from R. And I think that's provided by an existing R package that runs things like Webpack and stuff as well. The second chapter is on the kind of a word I really don't like, the tool chain of web development. So things like Webpack and the kind of Sass conversion and things, and the what is it now? Tools for minifying code and whatnot. Um, Yeah, so that could be really interesting. I think that's the final substantial chapter of the book, though, and then there's like a kind of where to go from here chapter. Um, but yeah, anyway, so for those of you who are going to be at PositConf in person, and for those of you who are going to be watching it online, have a nice week next week. But we don't have the book club on because of PositConf, and uh, yeah, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time, and we'll look deeper into the front end side of the world, and I'll probably try and learn a tiny bit of React before then because I know absolutely nothing of it. Right. Cool. Good to see you both. Um, yeah. So if you've got any questions about this, just ask in the Slack channel and whatnot. I can't claim that I'll be able to answer them, but I thought it was quite an interesting chapter and section of the book, but a little bit tough to follow. Anyway, see you later. Bye.
Thanks so much, Russ.
No problem.